Donc c'est INSEE de Terry Riley.
INSEE by Terry Riley.
INSEE was written in 1964 by Terry Riley. The premise behind
Par
the case
Terry Riley, donc il fait partie un peu de cette mouvance.
In the key of C? C major?
Welcome to Tell Me About In C, the podcast about Terry Riley's minimalist musical masterpiece, In C. I'm your host, Wesley Cheney. In this episode, I sit down with composer Carl Stone, who currently lives close to Terry Riley in Japan. Carl and I talk about his discovery of In C, Terry's final public performance of In C, and why In C is always heard best live. Listen now to another episode of Tell Me About In C. Welcome to Tell Me About In C, Carl Stone. So, Carl, tell me, what was your first introduction to In C?
This was a while ago, and my memory is not always the clearest as to when I first heard it, but I believe that my first exposure was around 1966 or 67, maybe 67 or 68, when I think about it. On the radio, there was an FM music station in Los Angeles, where I was living at the time, and they played mostly rock and things, but a couple of DJs would slip in more experimental things like Harry Partch, or in this case, In C. And they wouldn't play the whole thing. You know, they'd play an excerpt and say, okay, this is really, they sort of warned the audience that this was going to be something different from the Laura Nyro or the Quicksilver Messenger Service kind of stuff that they would normally be playing. Right. So that was my first exposure. And then I actually participated in a live performance while I was a student at Cal Arts, and that was where I sort of began to appreciate the piece more deeply. That would have been around 1973, I guess. So that's when I first encountered, In C in a deep fashion, to learn about how it was structured and, sort of the whole proposal about how to perform it and so on.
Wow. So when did you last listen to In C?
It may have been a performance. Well, I guess the last time I listened, there was a performance in Japan done at a temple in Kyoto. The
Full Moon Festival, I think.
The Full Moon Festival, and Terry slipped me an advance copy, so I listened to that. It's been released.
Cool. Yeah, I just bought a copy from Japan.
Good, great.
Loved it. It was a great performance.
Yeah, the Japanese musicians started out a little bit hesitant, a little bit shy, but at the end they were all rocking.
Yeah. So, how many formats of In C do you own?
Oh, I don't know. I've never really counted. Probably have 3 or 4. I have the original recording, which was on Columbia, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I have, I think, an Italian version where they really go nuts at the end. And I have the, and I have the Japan, the Full Moon Festival recording. So that's at least 3. I may have 1 or 2 more somewhere in my vast archive.
What's your favorite performance of In C to listen to or watch?
I think playing in it is the best way to experience it, frankly.
Yeah.
I've performed it a couple times, and one time I was actually the performance I mentioned when I was a student at Cal Arts. I played the Optagon, which was a sort of organ-like instrument that Mattel had made that used optical discs to produce sound, sort of like old a 60 millimeter film would use optical soundtracks. This used
Yeah,
the same
yeah.
principle.
Oh,
And
neat.
so I performed that, and then I did a performance in Kyushu here in Japan. Supervised. It was organized by Mamoru Fujieda, and sort of led. There was a kind of a conductor. And suddenly I'm blanking on Midori Tanaka,
Uh-huh.
of course, um, and I forget who did the Pulse, but anyway, those are the times that were impressive for me.
Yeah. What impact has NC had on you personally?
Well, it's certainly gives one a whole, opens the door to an appreciation about minimalism in music, which is something that's been strong for me. The idea of reducing a set of materials and using repetition was kind of very influential to me, especially in my earlier work. And even though I haven't really adopted this practice myself, I think that, part of the genius of the piece is the open form, the fact that, musicians it's very free. Musicians can move. They have to move sequentially, but they can choose their own timing. And so it gives a great spirit of improvisation and listening. Very important to listen, and very important to so that to me is kind of what NC was about, and it, along with the early works of Steve Reich and the early works of Philip Glass, all these composers came through when I was a student with their early ensembles, where they were doing really. I mean, people think about Phil Glass or Steve Reich now. Phil Glass with his orchestral works is very, very different than with his ensemble, which was loud, which was based on. He used instruments from rock, like the rock organs, the Farfisa, I guess they were Farfisa or maybe Vox organs. That sound was really not heard at all in contemporary music up until that point. So these composers were introducing new ways of playing, new sounds, crossing over from world music and from rock, and also working with repetition. So all these things were quite life-changing and influential to me.
Cool. So what's your favorite instrument to perform in C on?
Well, I just barely play keyboard, so that's all that I've ever done. I don't really play any other instruments. And I don't really play keyboards, but anymore. I studied piano when I was young, and I played keyboard a little bit when I was in a band in high school. But so the only thing I can do is kind of work through it on a keyboard. And technically, it's not a very difficult piece. That's one of the beautiful things about it, is that because it doesn't require any virtuosity, it can be available to be performed by almost anyone, really.
Yeah. Well, what do you think the ideal performance size is for the ensemble?
I don't really know if there is one.
Okay.
I mean, I think that I think that part of the philosophy of the piece is that it's scalable. It can be large, it can be small, and it's different every way, but no way is better or worse.
All right. What phrase of NC do you find yourself repeating the most?
Oh, gosh. I've never really thought about that. I have to get the score in front of me here. Hold on.
Okay.
There we go. gosh. I don't know which one I perform the most, but I always like the way that number 8 sort of fit in because it's the one with the extended, the dotted hole notes and yeah, the long tones. I kind of always like that one.
Yeah, I love the long tones. Is NC democratic?
I think it is. I think pretty much so. I mean, the fact that each performer is empowered to play at their own pace, observe minimal rules, but otherwise be free, I think is ultimately pretty democratic. The organizers are free to choose any instruments they want. The timing is free. The overall duration is free. So if it's not democratic, it's libertarian.
Okay. What's your favorite band influenced by NC?
Well, I don't know. You would have to give me some names because I'm sure that there are some bands that have declared NC as their influence, but I don't really follow bands in the band scene. So
Okay.
So I can't really answer.
Oh, hey, that's fine. That's totally fine. No, there's I mean the easiest answer is the Who with Bob O'Reilly.
Right.
I mean the keyboard pattern is very minimalist in Bob O'Reilly.
Yeah.
He keeps just playing
Yeah.
over and over again.
Yeah. I didn't, that could be influenced by NC. Could also be influenced by, his, like Rainbow and Curved Air. I felt, although I suppose you'd have to check to see which came out first. By the way, speaking of the Who, I don't know if you probably know because you're obviously NC maniac. That it's going to be performed in May at the Bang in a Can Long Play Festival, and
I didn't know that.
you didn't know that, and
I didn't know
furthermore,
that.
and furthermore, Pete Townsend is going to be sitting in as one of the players.
Wow! Oh, that sounds exciting. Oh my gosh!
So you should try to make it to where are you located?
Charleston, West Virginia, so not too far away.
Yeah, come on up. You should come on up.
Yeah, for sure. Pulse or no pulse?
I think Pulse. I mean, Pulse is kind of in the original score and the concept, and I wouldn't think of any reason you should eliminate the Pulse. It's hard to play. I think it's hard on the instrument and it's hard on the players, but I think more of a question is, should the Pulse be played live or can it be played from a sequencer or something like that? And so that's more of an ethical issue than Pulse or no Pulse in my mind.
Well, personally, when I've led NC, I've used a recorded loop for the Pulse. That I recorded ahead of time because I felt like I didn't want to ask anybody to do something that I was unwilling to do myself. And I didn't want to ask anybody to play the Pulse when I didn't want to play it myself.
Of course.
So I recorded it ahead of time for mine.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Loopers, yes or no?
So loopers meaning like instead of actually playing the phrase over and over again, like setting up a loop and just having it play until you move to the next one?
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, I don't think one would want to. I mean, they're different because one, I suppose, if you're playing it live, you're adjusting your timing even at a microscopic level, to fit in with the other players. A loop is just a loop; it's fixed, and the timing is not going to vary from note to note unless you're using very sophisticated looping procedure. So, I mean, given the openness of the concept, I think it's kind of silly to make these sort of this is okay, but this is not okay kind of decisions
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
looping or anything else.
Yeah. All right. Is phrase 35 too long or just right?
I don't. Why would anyone think it was too long? Too long or too short? Again, this is kind of like. I think that having a long phrase, it's obviously a decision that the composer made to put this kind of sort of outstanding in the sense that it's not like the others in a score. He obviously thought about it, and I don't see why it would be deemed too long or too short or anything other than what it is.
All right. Well, how much improvisation should there be in NC?
Well, personally, for me, I mean, Terry has a very kind of open attitude about that. I personally think people should stick to the score. I like it when they stick to the score.
Yeah.
But Terry has given his blessing for people to add a certain amount of improvisation, I think. And, we've heard performances where, like that Italian performance that came out, I forget which label it came out on, where, they just, everything is thrown to the winds by the end. It's just like a total free-for-all. This is my personal opinion is if I'm doing NC, stick to the score. That's my way of doing it.
All right. Final question for you. What would you ask Terry Riley?
Well, Terry lives here in Japan where I am, and I see him, I would say about once a month when I'm in the country and not out on tour. And we've I've interviewed him on the radio, and we've talked about this and that. I mean, he, NC is obviously an important piece. It's kind of like his bolero, if you will.
Yeah.
It's the piece that everybody, remembers and knows, and sort of his claim to fame. But, he's been active as a composer, just absolutely producing a phenomenal amount of work, especially now he's approaching 90. He's still composing. So while NC is obviously an important piece and one that he certainly, I think, appreciates in his own modesty how it opened the door for a lot of things. I haven't really, asked him specifically about the piece other than kind of, the questions that he often gets about sort of, how'd you think about this? How'd you get this idea in the first place? Which
Right.
is, a pretty interesting question because nobody had written, sort of pieces like anything like this before. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, thanks,
Okay.
Carl, for talking. I appreciate it.
Okay.
So thanks for listening to another episode of Tell Me About NC. If you love performing and listening to NC, I'd love to talk to you. If NC has influenced your own music, I want to know about it. If you know of a performance of NC coming up, drop me a line. My email address is friendwes@mac.com. Wherever you are in the world, we can have a conversation. You just need a smartphone and a quiet room. As DJ Pseudonymous, I host the radio show Radio Eclectica on WMMT 88.7 FM from Whitesburg, Kentucky on Fridays from noon to 2 p.m. Eastern. You can stream Radio Eclectica on WMMT's website, wmmt.org. I take deep dives into genres as diverse as minimalism, answer songs, thrift store vinyl, post-rock, and sampling. My first show, of course, was on NC and included many interviews from this podcast. I also host a podcast called Tell Me About Your Bike. The podcast about the meaning of life, the universe, and bicycling. I very well may love riding my bike more than playing NC. When I got into podcasts almost 20 years ago, my favorite shows combined bikes and music. I recently got a chance to interview John Winston, the man behind one of the first podcasts I ever listened to, the Bikescape podcast. John took me on a bike tour of San Francisco, including the streets that Terry Riley walked when he composed NC. Also, I'm organizing several performances of NC in 2026 in Virginia and West Virginia. If you'd like to perform NC with me, drop me an email at friendwes@mac.com. I'll be performing NC in Norfolk, Virginia on Sunday, March 16th, and I'm scheduling another performance of NC in June in Charleston, West Virginia. You can find links to my other shows and the music of my guests in the show notes. In the next episode of Tell Me About NC, I'll be interviewing Simone Liebelon, who just released an album entitled NC for 35 Violas. I'm always excited to hear solo recordings of NC, and Simone's new album does not disappoint. Subscribe now so you don't miss the next episode of Tell Me About NC. Cheers, y'all.